So I'm going to give you all a few minutes as Dr. Shields is letting some more people in, just to look at that question and think about it as we go through these slides. Now, today, we're going to be talking about starting strong and finishing stronger. This is one of those initiatives that was launched by Governor Ivey. And what she was trying to do is to integrate the early childhood education, K-12, in the workforce. And she wanted to make it a seamless journey. So as Dr. Shields said earlier, you are not being placed on a list or anything. What we're here to do is to provide support and guidance with identifying any disparity between your grad and CCR rate and what we can do to help you all close the gap between the two. So once again, we're going to be discussing the grad and CCR rate that's based on those 2019 graduates, and that is that pre-pandemic data. So just in case you have not registered for this session, make sure you go into Power School and register for this session. The course number and section number are listed. Here is the registration link is also listed. And William, if you will, pop that registration link in the chat for them.
It is now in the chat.
Thank you. So these are today's presenters. I've already introduced myself, and I'm going to let the other two presenters introduce themselves.
William, go ahead, buddy.
William Jones. I also work in the Office of School Improvement and serve almost any area south of Montgomery. So a pretty large area, but that's my area.
And I'm Joseph Garner, also a member of the Family Office of School Improvement. If you know the team by any chance, you know that William is the vocalist, Dr. Burroughs is the queen, and I am known as just the OSI guy. So we take it as it comes, and it's a great pleasure to be able to serve you today, you know, as you embark on the journey of improving or closing the gap between CCR and grad rate. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. These are the rest of our team members. You may see them with this emblem in the back. We also have on the call with us today our principal coaches, literacy coaches, other support personnel that helps us support our schools, and we could not do it without them. And we thank them for being on the call with us today as well. When you want to talk about what we have here on this slide?
I placed in the chat, but it's also available here on the screen for those that use QR codes and want to scan the QR code, they can. But the bit.ly link was placed in the chat so you could follow along with the presentation, also have it as a resource after the presentation concludes. And then we also we try to be as active as possible on Twitter, and that's a great way to connect with us and kind of see what we're doing and also share what you're doing, and we can support that work. So our Twitter handle for our office is on the screen, as well as Dr. Burroughs's personal Twitter handle and mine.
Okay, can you all still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So in the meeting today, we just have a few virtual norms. We want you to always assume a positive intent, seek clarification in language and ideas at any point. If I'm going too fast or if I'm talking too fast, please let us know, and then I'll be sure to slow down. If you have any questions or need any clarifying information, please let us know that as well. So we're here to share our experiences and to just grow with each other. We can all learn from our colleagues' experiences. So we want to keep all of that in mind. And please use the chat feature for questions and answers. And if you will, please make sure that you mute your microphone when you are not speaking. William?
We wanted to make sure that our work was, just kind of establish the alignment between what we're doing here today, and Dr. Shields did a fantastic job of that. But we also wanted to make mention of the connection of this work to the state strategic plan. And so as you can see on the screen, the Alabama Achieves strategic plan that Dr. Mackey and the team at the department have put together kind of outlines this idea that we are all working to reduce the gap between the college and career readiness rate and the graduation rate. And so you can see the objective as listed in the document, and also what we use, critical initiative, that's terminology from Cognia, so that sort of fit with what we were doing. And we wanted you to see that we kind of structure our own growth improvement sort of goals in the same way that you all do at the district and school level.
Thank you, William. So with that said, our session agenda for today, we're going to look at an overall view of the report card. Then we're going to talk about those CCR indicators. We're going to look at processes and procedures, which is what a lot of you have signed on for. How or what type of strategies can we use to help decrease that gap between the grad and CCR rates? And then we're going to give you a few minutes to just take some reflection time and just think about some of the things we talked about, some of the things that you have in place, and some of the things that you may need to put in place based on today's session. And then we will have a survey at the end to get your feedback on how you think that we could better serve you in the future with the next session, and anything else that we need to do moving forward to improve. So just the overall snapshot of what we're doing here today. The goal of Alabama education is that each student graduates from high school with the knowledge and skills to proceed in post high school education and the workforce without needing remediation. So we need to make sure that the number of students that we're graduating and the number of students who are college and career ready are close in proximity to each other. And that's one of the issues that we've been facing. We're going to look at seven indicators here, but we're only going to focus on 3 of the 7. The remainder of the indicators will be addressed in the session that will be October 26th. Looking at improving those college and career readiness rates, and then tips on how to prepare students for college, military, and career, and things that you can do to help make sure that our students are graduating on time. So just looking at the overall overview of your report card, how do we get here? So here you have these particular indicators on the report card. You have your college and career readiness, your graduation rate, chronic absenteeism, academic growth, progress in ELP, and then academic achievement. The 2 indicators that we're focused on here today are your graduation rate and your college and career readiness rate. Now, ever since the graduation rate was dropped in 2013, it became an accountability measure, okay? After the graduation exam was dropped, then the department implemented measures to make sure that students are prepared for college and career. And that's where your CCR measures come into place. So the graduation and CCR indicators are an overall portion of the accountability rate, and we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to minimize that gap. So when you're thinking about college and career readiness, what you want to do is let's look at what the success of Alabama educational system is determined by. The success of Alabama's educational system is determined by 2 things: the grad rate and your college and career readiness rate. So the grad rate measures the number of students who successfully complete high school within a 4-year time frame. The college and career readiness rate, it measures the number of students who are in that cohort and they graduate within a 4-year time frame. So those are all those students who earn at least one or a combination of the 7 indicators, which would be WorkKeys, ACT, credentialing and CTE, AP exam, military, or IB exam. So these 2 factors determine the success of Alabama's grad educational system. Now, so earlier I told you that I wanted you all to look at this question and think about it as we go through this session. Now, we're coming back to this question and we're looking at considering what are the implications of having a high graduation rate, but yet a low college and career readiness rate. So at this time, Dr. Shields is going to put you all in breakout rooms.
Okay, and you should be teleported soon. Just accept the invite and just let's have a conversation about what does that mean when the graduation rate is high and the college career readiness rate is much lower.
Okay, I see the participants are coming back in. Okay, as you're coming back in, use the chat to enter in what you discussed in your breakout sessions. So as you are coming back in, take this time to put your comments in the chat about the implications of having a high graduation rate and a low college and career readiness rate. Okay, someone said the importance of rigor in the curriculum. That is very important. Having that rigor in your instruction, in the curriculum, and making sure that you are teaching the standards. Because even though we have several different indicators that make up the CC, your college and career readiness, all of it boils back down to instruction. Someone else put that students are not well prepared for college and they are needing remediation. That is true. We do have a large number of students, you may have a large number of students who may need remediation. And one good way to determine the number of students who need remediation when they go to college, if you go to the Parker website, and if someone will put a link to that website, it will give you all the information you need to know, including those students who need remediation and what areas they need remediation in, whether it's math or reading. And then you can backtrack that all the way back down to your instruction. It's high graduation, low CCR implies that our curriculum is not as rigorous as it should be. Yes, it does. So that leads one to believe, what is the value of that high school diploma? If you have a high number of students who are graduating, but yet your CCR rate shows that they are not prepared. Aligning curriculum and the CCR indicators. Yes, I totally agree with that, Rebecca. Aligning the curriculum, and that's one of the things we're going to be looking at when we look at the WorkKeys and ACT assessments. And then the last comment that I see here, although I know there are more coming in, we tend to focus more on getting students to the point of graduation, ensuring they have credits, motivating them to finish, instead of discussing the importance of CCR and how it can impact their future. And that, Ms. Stevenson, or Mr. Stevenson, I do agree with that wholeheartedly. Not only do we need to make sure that students are graduating, but we need to make sure that they are actually prepared for life beyond high school, whether it's going to a 2 or 4 year college, going to the military, or going directly into the workforce. It is our charge as educators to make sure that we have them prepared. So when you're looking at having both a high graduation rate and CCR rate, that indicates that the diplomas used by those schools have credibility and value. But when you have a graduation rate where that's high, but your CCR rate is low, then that is cause for concern. As we look at the next slide here, this slide represents the comparison of the grad and CCR rate from 2016 all the way up to 2020. Now, I do want to point out this information, this data that we have here for the 2020 graduates has not completely been certified yet, but I still wanted to put that information up here since these were those students that graduated at the, midpoint of our pandemic that we had back in March of 2020. So when you're looking here at that 2016 data, you see that starting out, and remember I told you earlier that in 2013, that's when they dropped that graduation exam. They dropped the graduation exam, and then your grad rate became the accountability measure. Now, so if you look from 2016 all the way up to 2019, you see a steady decrease in our gap, in the gap between the grad and the CCR rate. And you see where your grad rate steadily increased. And in 2019, the state of Alabama was highlighted as having the highest graduation rate in the nation. And you see our college and career readiness rate over the years continue to increase, and thereby decreasing the gap between the grad and the CCR rate. Now, I told you one impact that we can look at to justify why that grad rate started to increase. One reason is they dropped the graduation exam.
Yes, sir.
What
You
are
come
some
on in, I'm
other
on mute.
reasons- What are some other reasons do you think there was? What are some other reasons you think were contributed to the increase in the grad rate? Anybody just quickly place some answers in the chat? Because we
Dr.
know that,
Burroughs, I see some have actually, they were ahead of you. They've already started addressing that in the chat, just looking at this data.
okay, thank you. I cannot multitask. So let's see what we have here. Accountability was connected to it. Yes. Accountability was connected to it. Students are seeing the importance of the CCR rate, but they are seeing the importance of graduation, and they are not taking the tests seriously that are used to measure CCR. Dropping the grad exam is one. Also, what about the increased efforts we had on credit recovery efforts? That was one reason. And also the diploma pathways. Remember, we had several diploma pathways that a student can take. So now we've gone from having several pathways to now 2. You're either going to graduate with, well, I don't even think they have honors anymore, but they decreased the number of graduation diploma pathways. So those are the reasons why you see a decrease in your grad rate. The CCR rate did steadily increase as well. Now, since your graduation and your college and career readiness rate are the 2 determining factors as to how Alabama sees success in their educational system, let's look at how to calculate the graduation rate. Now, it's quite simple. To calculate your graduation rate, you're simply going to look at those total number of students who enter in the 9th grade and who graduate within a 4-year time frame. So your graduation rate is simply determined by the number of students graduating within 4 years, and you're going to divide that by the students in that 9th grade cohort. And please remember, your graduation rate is 1 year in arrears. What does that mean? For your 2019 graduates, that information is not reported until the following year. So for our 2020 graduates, that information should be coming out hopefully within the next few months. Your college and career readiness rate. Well, this is also in 1 year in arrears, because it's also based on the number of students who enter in the 9th grade. So those students who are in that 9th grade cohort. So to calculate your CCR rate, is the number of students in a 4-year cohort earning a credential divided by the students in that 9th grade cohort. Okay. So once again, you're looking at the number of students in the 4-year cohort who earn a credential, and that's being divided by the students in the 9th grade cohort. Okay, now, some of you may have experienced that your CCR rate is greater than your grad rate. Well, that could be possibly because those students who entered 9th grade, they earned a credential, but they didn't graduate with their class. Now, we're gonna do an overview of the college and career readiness indicators. In your college and career readiness indicators, there are 7 indicators. You have your WorkKeys, ACT, APIB exams, benchmarking on those exams, enlisting in the military, earning college credit, and CTE credentialing. For the purposes of this session and time, we're going to focus on WorkKeys, ACT, and earning college credit. So those are the 3 indicators that we're going to be discussing today. Now, I do want to give you just some overall information about your CCR indicators. Your CCR indicators, this information is housed in the AIMS portal, okay? Now, if you want to know whether or not you have access or should you have access, you have to be given access in the education directory. And typically the people who have access to this information, superintendent, principals, CTE directors, testing coordinator, guidance counselors. Sometimes the superintendent may assign this role to another department within the district. Now, when you are thinking about WorkKeys, ACT, and college credit, and how the information here is pulled over into your AIMS portal. With WorkKeys and ACT, this information is actually pulled over through the 5 files that the department receives from ACT. College credit will have to be entered in manually at the school level, and that is normally left up to the principal or the person that he designates to do that task. With military enlistment, CTE credentialing, that information, AB and IP exam, that information is also imported in or uploaded by someone at the school level. And also this information, it is updated or is pulled from PowerSchool Sys now nightly. And once you do make any entries or updates, it takes about 48 hours for it to reflect in the portal. Now, looking at the overall comparison of each of the CCR indicators here, we see that overall, as we saw earlier, overall 80% of the 2019 graduates graduated earning a college and career readiness indicator or meeting an indicator. The majority of that came from WorkKeys. So 61% of those students who earned that credential, earned it in WorkKeys, followed by benchmarking on one portion of the ACT. CTE was 37%, college credit 14%, benchmarking on the AP exam 12%, enlisting in the military 2%, and then benchmarking on the IB exam 1%.
Hey,
Now,
Marcy,
I do want to say with earning that CCR indicator, that has to be done prior to students graduating from high school. So you cannot occur during the summer, or even if that student is a summer graduate. So whatever you have designated as that time, that's when that student must have that credential earned. William?
I was just going to point out, Dr. Burroughs, if you could revisit, we had a question come in the chat.
Okay.
The first being, could you repeat what was entered at the school level that you talked about on the slide that we're now seeing?
At the school level, military enlistment, AP IB exam, the qualifying score, whether or not that student earned college credit, and credentialing on the CTE, credentialing in CTE.
Okay. The second question we had come in, I'm going to refer this to you too, because you are our PowerSchool guru. Have instructions been provided yet on how to enter CTE, CCR, and military attainment in the PowerSchool Sys?
With the CTE military, with the CTE, yes, it has. I will make a note to make sure I share that information with you all on how to enter that in PowerSchool Sys. I think that they did have a training session with CTE directors showing them how to do that. So I'll make sure that you get that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I do want to say this also about those CCR indicators. You do not, schools or LEAs will not receive a bonus if students benchmark in more than one area in CCR, okay? So you can have a student that benchmarks multiple times. That's only going to count once for you as far as accountability is concerned. And so a student will only have to meet one of these 7 indicators in order to be considered college and career ready. Benchmarking in CCR is not a requirement for graduation. However, that will let you know whether or not your students are prepared for college and career beyond high school. The first indicator that we're going to look at is WorkKeys. The benefits of students taking their WorkKeys assessment. The benefits of students taking their WorkKeys assessment is twofold. It measures your job skills and it provides them with a certificate, which is your National Career Readiness Certificate, certifying that these students have the foundational skills necessary to be successful in the workplace. So that measuring those job skills, it just simply answers the question whether or not students have the soft skills to be successful on the job or the hard skills. So when you're looking at or thinking about those hard skills, those cognitive skills, you're looking at thinking, reasoning, remembering, those different types of skills. But with the non-cognitive, your soft skills, you want to see, you're looking at their interpersonal interaction with their teammates. Are they coming to work on time? Motivated? Are they motivated? Do they have integrity? You're looking at the individual's personality, temperament, and attitudes. And see, when students earn that NCR C certificate, then that just simply certifies that students have achieved the necessary foundational skills to be successful in the workplace. This link here that you have is a WorkKeys foundational skills flyer that you can click on and learn more information. Now, looking at your CCR indicator, WorkKeys, the students who take this assessment, they need to earn that certificate. That certificate is based on 3 different areas: applied mathematics, graphic literacy, and workplace documents. Now, in earning that certificate, each one of these have a score range, and that levels, which will be your level scores. So will be your bronze, which is 3, silver 4, gold 5, and platinum is 6. Your level scores are oftentimes used in hiring and advancement decisions. So they're just a snapshot based on the skills needed for a particular job. Now, with your WorkKeys assessment, the cut score for a silver certificate and the benchmark for accountability is a 4 or above on all sections of the WorkKeys. Okay, and then that student that earns a 4 or higher on all of the subsections or the sections of WorkKeys will earn a CCR indicator. Now, if a student, let's say a student earns a 4, a 3, and a 6. If that student earns a 4, a 3, and a 6, then that student will receive an overall 3, okay? And remember, for accountability purposes, that student needs to earn a 4. Now, the students can take your WorkKeys assessment more than one time, so please make sure that you capitalize on that. So between the time that the assessments are administered, and I think this is the month that you all are administering the WorkKeys, between that time and the time that they can take makeups, I will go back and look to see what areas they were not as successful on and make sure that you prepare them between now and the next time they get ready to take it. So students who earn a silver or above are considered to be ready for the workforce and demonstrate a level of skill required for 69% of the jobs. Now, what we did in the next 3 slides is we took each section of the WorkKeys and we looked at what those standards were for level 4. So with workplace documents, these are the standards here that a student needs to be able to master in order to earn a level 4. What we went and created is a document that aligns WorkKeys and the course of study with relationships to workplace document, applied math, and graphic literacy. So I'm pulling up the alignment document that we have here. And what we did here, move some stuff out of the way. What we did here, can you all still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so what we have here is WorkKeys alignment for workplace documents. What we tried to do was align it, since students are taking this exam in the 12th grade, we tried to align it to the 12th grade standards. So WorkKeys performance level, identify main idea. This is the standard that it aligns to in the ELA course of study. This is not the most recent one that was adopted, since this is not the implementation year. We went with the old course of study. So we did that for workplace documents and how that aligns to each one of the standards for that's listed in our course of study. Now, the next slide that we're going to look at is applied mathematics. This document is aligned to the 2019 math course of study. So with the applied mathematics, test takers can set up, solve, and calculate the types of problems that occur in the workplace. Now, with this particular alignment, some of the skills that students or standards that students needed to master were actually 7th grade standards. Some of them, not all. So we did the best that we could in finding the alignment. But what you can do as you are preparing and working with students, if you know that this is a weak area for the majority of your students, teachers can take what these standards are on the WorkKeys performance level and use them as warm-ups, or just quick reviews throughout the course of the class. The next one is graphic literacy. We did the same one here. This one is a combination of math and ELA, simply because if you're looking at this first one, locate information in a graphic using information found in another graphic, that aligned to 12th grade standard for ELA, okay, where students have to synthesize information from 2 or more graphic texts to draw a conclusion. So the overall objective here, students should be able to take information that's found in another graph and use it in another one. Joe, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, Marcy. Someone asked a question in the chat regarding benchmarking on WorkKeys prior to 12th grade. A lot of districts are trying to test young men and young ladies in grades prior to their senior year. If someone earns a qualifying score, do they benchmark at that time?
Yes, you can. You don't have to wait into the administration, or it doesn't necessarily have to be when the state administers WorkKeys or the ACT for that matter. Those scores, just as long as that assessment was taken within the state of Alabama, those scores will count. And what is going to be transmitted to into the Ames portal is going to be pulled directly from what the department uploads. Are there any other questions? This is the next performance level that we discussed. Applied mathematics, and then we have our graphic literacy. The next question that I see here is, what is the earliest year students can take the WorkKeys assessment? I am not quite sure, but I don't know if any of my other colleagues know the answer to this question. I would say possibly 9th grade, but I'm not quite sure if you'll have to pay for that administration or not. If you do it earlier than that, you'll probably have to pay for that administration of the assessment. Now, I do know that if you all do any work with Ready to Work, and if you have that relationship with the junior colleges, I think it may have changed over the last couple of years. But in my former role, we partnered with Lawson State, and they did bear the expense of having our students take the WorkKeys assessment outside of the testing window. No. The next question was, since the department does not upload the ACT or the WorkKeys assessment outside of when it is administered statewide, no. Please forgive me if you all misunderstood me. Anytime a student sits down and take the ACT or WorkKeys assessment, that data is shared with the State Department. The State Department receives 5 files from ACT, and they upload all of the information. So if a student retakes WorkKeys or ACT, their highest score is going to be reflected. Did I miss any questions?
Dr. Burroughs, we just might want to just reiterate that although that data is being pulled over at the state level, we still recommend at the school level that you are viewing that data based on what information you're receiving on the student as well. So you're just verifying that what you see in the portal is the most up-to-date information. Although you're not entering it, just continue to monitor and verify.
Right, and also if the score that's reflected in your dashboard is not correct, there will be a designated window of time for updates to be completed in iNow. And all updates will be completed by the LEA at the school level in iNow. And so all you'll have to do, if there's any information that's not correct, make sure you have a copy of the score report, which shows that that student actually earned a higher score than that, and make sure that you place that in the student's CUM folder. So you all will have an opportunity to update any information that's not correct. And so that's why it is important that when you have to verify your CCR data, you actually go through and look at every student and verify all of the information that's in there, and make sure that you have that supporting documentation in their CUM folder.
Marcy, one more thing. I had another question regarding scoring of the WorkKeys. Would like to just point out once again to everyone that, you know, they have to earn a qualifying score in all 3 areas to benchmark on WorkKeys. And a level 3, which is a bronze level, is not a benchmark level. So a student can earn a silver level through a score of 4 in 2 of the 3 areas and earn a 3 in that 3rd area, and they will not attain a benchmark in WorkKeys because it diverts to the lowest score earned in one of the 3 areas.
Right, thank you.
So Dr. Burroughs, can you, the question in the chat is more so asking, in the case that Dr. Garner has listed, the student hit a level 4 on 2 portions of the test, but scored a level 3 on the 3rd portion. Would the student need to sit for all 3 sections? They do not. That's
no. The student can sit just for that particular section that they did not earn a 4 on. Once again, just referring back to my experience, that is one thing that we did in my former role. We focused on those students who did not benchmark in a particular section, and we provided them with support, and they sat for that section of the WorkKeys. Okay, now, so when you're looking at earning or having your students to earn that National Career Readiness Certificate, these are the different skill levels and abilities for each of the levels. So Earning a WorkKeys certificate or NCRC certificate is not just for those students who plan to go directly into the workforce. This certificate can benefit all students, those high academic achieving students and those students who struggle a little bit academically, but they can work well, you know, in a trade area. So earning that NCRC certificate can benefit all students. If you look at level 5 and level 6, these are those students who may be thinking about matriculating to a 4-year institution. It will benefit them to take the WorkKeys assessment. If you're looking at that level 4, that's for 65% of the jobs. And look at the sample occupations that's listed: administrative, manager, head cook, medical assistants. So earning this certificate can benefit all students. And this is something that the team and I discovered. Students can receive a college credit for earning a certificate in WorkKeys if they earn it in the higher levels, level 5 or level 6, but we will be discussing that a little bit more in detail.
Hey, Dr. Burroughs.
Yes.
Yes, I also wanted to discuss what you talked about with the Ready to Work program that has been implemented in several schools. That is a great resource for schools as far as administering the WorkKeys in several increments. However, just be mindful of the fact that their qualifications for employment is a level 3, but with the State Department, it's level 4 through 7. Is that correct?
Yes, as far as accountability is concerned, if I heard your question right, and I think that's Dr. Hall talking,
Yes.
for accountability purposes, student must earn a minimum of a 4 in all sections of WorkKeys.
Yes, okay, thank you so much for clarifying that, because I know that many schools, well, some schools have inquired in the past, you know, if they have met this requirement for Ready to Work, is this the same requirement for the State Department? And so we've had to clarify that in different sessions that we've had.
Jobs only require a level 3. Okay, now, so the use of your WorkKey scores, adding that National Career Readiness Certificate to the resume, students can show this as evidence for skills needed for jobs. You can use it at the community or a technical college level as well. And then this link will provide you with different types of occupations. Okay, Joe?
Sure. Let me go back, and you did a great job, Marcy, of explaining that. A conversation that I had with a principal a couple days ago regarding the relevance of WorkKeys with his students. It seems to be, you know, when you engage in the school improvement process and you look at it through the lens of a plan, do, study, act scientific model of improvement, and you get to a root cause analysis of problem of practice, that the difficulty with testing seniors is why do I need to take the WorkKeys? Or even with teachers, well, what is the WorkKeys and why do I need to prepare the young men and young ladies to take the WorkKeys? And, you know, there's something to be said for self-discovery. This principal met with Amazon and really brought to light why young men and young ladies need to be successful, or as successful as they can on the WorkKeys, because Amazon and Mercedes both use WorkKeys for job placement. For example, Mercedes will employ a young man or young lady in an internship program where they can earn up to $79,000 and get their college paid for based upon a WorkKeys assessment. So to simply write it off as, well, it's optional, we don't have to do it, everyone, it certainly is, it's optional as from a state perspective, but you have to know your student population. You have to know what percentage of your young men and young ladies are going to a four-year college and what percentage of them are entering the workforce or going to a two-year community college to be better prepared to enter the workforce with that credential. So looking at that and keeping that in mind, you plan ahead. Now, the ACT NCRC, which is National Career Readiness Certificate, is a way of demonstrating college level competency. The platinum or gold level is comparable to achievement in college level coursework. And that is something that we just discovered, but I do need to point out to you all, credit awards are based, or they're at the discretion of the two-year community colleges. So it's not something that is set by the state. It is completely at the discretion of the community college. So, as you're progressing or getting ready to do the WorkKeys assessment, touch base with your local community colleges and see how they are willing to accept ACT WorkKeys scores. Now, we've also provided some links for you with the WorkKeys curriculum to help teachers in their instruction or preparation of young men and young ladies for the WorkKeys. Supposedly the WorkKeys is written on the 8th grade level. But from an instructional standpoint, we know that many of our young men and young ladies are at a lower performing academic level or grade level. So we need to continue to reinforce those, weekly, daily, sometimes continue to reinforce those standards at which they're assessed for the ACT WorkKeys. And we provided a couple links for you here, the Alabama WorkKeys curriculum website and the Preparing for WorkKeys, which both are on the ACT WorkKeys website. Thank you.
So very quickly, we're running short on time. We've got some really important information to get to towards the end of our presentation. So Dr. Shields had already placed this in the chat, but I will reiterate that as questions come in, we may wait till the end and prepare a question and answer document. That's what we're going to do, a question and answer document. So if we don't answer your question during the presentation, we will get to it and share that information with you. Quickly moving into the ACT, just a connection. I know Dr. Burroughs mentioned that, we recommend that once you administer the WorkKeys in the fall, that you look at the areas where students that may have struggled and you start kind of building on those skills so you prepare them for the makeup test so that you can move them to the level 4. But I want to mention that when students and when they are juniors take the ACT, on the student score report, there is what would be the student's WorkKeys score on that report. So as juniors where those students would fall if they were to take the WorkKeys at that point. So when they start senior year and you're building in these WorkKeys kind of supports into your curriculum, you can easily see what areas your students need more support in as you're guiding your 12th grade teachers. Yes, ACT is a CCR indicator. We know that. Some clarification here that we wanted to make is we listed the ACT benchmarks because when it comes to CCR indicators, students only earn an indicator if they hit the ACT benchmark, which is different than the Alabama proficiency levels when it comes to academic achievement and academic growth on the state report card. So we've included that here because a level 3 when it comes to state proficiency is different than the benchmarks on the actual ACT as published by ACT. So to earn the credential, the CCR credential, they must hit the scores that you're seeing on the screen. We wanted to point out the ACT fee waivers, similar to what we had discussed earlier in the chat. Students can earn those benchmarks on any administration of the ACT. It does not have to be the single 11th grade administration that is the state required administration of the ACT. Because that information is provided to the state by ACT, it does not matter when students take it. So we wanted to point out the ACT fee waivers. As you can see on the screen, there is a large chunk of fee waivers that are not taken advantage of. So we wanted to bring that to your attention. Additionally, we will talk a little bit more about goal setting as we move through this presentation. You will see, and I'll include a link in the chat at some point, some of the key findings from ACT when they evaluated the ACT scores of Alabama. What you're seeing on the screen are some of the key findings, and those highlight the idea that students that are aspiring for certain goals when it comes to post-secondary education tend to score better, earn those benchmark scores on the ACT based on their aspirations. And so as you're goal setting, we highly recommend the use of looking at aspirations. So moving forward, we'll also include a link. The question in the chat I'll answer really quickly. How many benchmarks on the ACT do you have to benchmark to get a CCR credit? You only have to benchmark on one subtest to earn a CCR credential. So the following pages will be shared in the chat. And so these are just resources that are aligned to the subtest of the ACT. I actually have moved these to a separate presentation so you can share those with your staff. Beyond the CCR presentation, they are their own slides. So I will share those in the chat momentarily. We just go subtest by subtest. There are a couple of slides that are generic ACT prep resources that we recommend or tell you to peruse to see what might work for your students.
Okay, now getting to the last, and that's college credit. 14% of the 2019 graduates earned college credit. So when you're looking at students credentialing in, earning a CCR indicator for this area, one thing that you want to consider is partnership with your local 2- and 4-year colleges. That's going to be very essential. Partnership is a necessary component of any effort when it involves two distinct entities that are trying to work together to develop the processes and protocols so that there can be a smooth transition between the two. You also want to look at your student recruitment and selection. So go back and analyze your data and keep track of participation rates, especially for those underrepresented populations. When you identify students who may be struggling academically and who are historically underrepresented at colleges, this may be an area that you can improve upon because you can target those specific groups of students. And then you want to think about funding. How can students pay for tuition and textbooks? And then the last thing you really want to consider is support services. What do your support services look like? You may have a large number of students who are enrolled in dual enrollment or taking college credits, but they are not passing the classes. So look to see what type of supports you have in place for those students. Because you want to promote positive, supportive relationships between your new and continuing students, your staff, and your instruction. And you want to focus on informing students about the program and expectation requirements and structures. So when it comes to earning a college credit goes far beyond dual enrollment, but that typically is what we think about when we think about college credit. So with dual enrollment, that simply means that a student is enrolled in college, taking those classes, and those courses can also count for high school credits. But there must be, they must be courses that are listed on that dual enrollment equivalency list. So if someone will place that in the chat, then you can also look at that early admission. So this is a practice that gives advanced student an opportunity to enter college well. I do want to point this out about early admission or just earning college credit. A student can earn a college credit and it not count for a dual enrollment class. But you just need to make sure that you have a copy of that student's transcript in his or her file, because if it's not an equivalent, if it's not a class, a college class that's equivalent to one of the classes on the list, you cannot put it on the student's high school transcript. You need to make sure that you have that relationship with the college so you can get a copy of that student's transcript and place it in a file. Benchmarking on your AP/IB exams is another way to earn college credit. The college level entrance exam, these are a great way to motivate students to study with strong study skills to obtain a college credit in high school. These tests are similar to the AP exams, but they do not offer that structure that the AP classes have. So students basically have to prepare on their own. So you just need to know what works best for your population. And then summer college, students can gain credit in high school by enrolling in a summer program. And these summer programs typically focus on computer science, economics, history, and classes. But do remember, a student they must earn this credit prior to their graduation date. After graduation date, this will not count. You want to look at those, how students are going to pay for textbooks and tuition. ESSA funds is one way. Also, the Alabama Community College System, they've added another scholarship for dual enrollment students, and that's STEM scholarship. And that's for anybody who's interested in going in those academic areas. And then some districts even pay for their students to take dual enrollment classes. So that's another funding source for paying for college courses. Also, once again, look at that student support, what type of orientation is being provided, the academic advisement, personal counseling, just letting students know what they need to do and what direction they need to go in and what will work best for them. The early warning alert system is very important because sometimes students, they're starting school and they're trying to learn the way and they have not structured their time. So that's another thing that's also important. And transportation, if you're going to offer dual enrollment classes, you need to decide whether or not it's going to be on campus, off campus. If students are going to be transported from the high school campus during the day to the local school. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about here are processes and procedures. So this gets to the meat of our presentation. So we're really going to look at this pathway. What are some things that we can do and put in place to make sure that all students graduate from high school ready for college, career, or the workforce? The first thing that you need to do is make sure that students have a 4-year plan, a personalized academic plan by the 9th grade year, which means they're going to sit out and map out what direction they want to take academically. Then you want to make sure that you are pulling that cohort tracking data. You want to make sure that you keep up with that information for each of your cohorts. Then looking at taking the ASVAB in the 10th grade. Yes, in the 10th grade, and William is going to speak more about that. And most importantly, you want to make sure this is your last ditch effort, having those junior meetings. That's your last ditch effort to make sure that you sit down and meet with all of your upcoming seniors. Then make sure you conduct that transcript audit. Although it's number 6, conducting a transcript audit is going to be very important throughout that student's time. And then looking at FAFSA, making sure students know that they have options as far as how they can pay for college. And then the last thing, the place that we're going to end up, we're going to make sure that student is a graduate and is prepared for any of these areas. Now, Joseph is going to talk to us about the next few slides on 4-year planning and having an personalized academic plan.
Absolutely. And thank you, Marcy. I want to point out the value of 4-year plans and student advisement, which begins early. It begins actually you can begin way earlier than 8th grade, but it begins in the 8th grade with Alabama Career Planning System and a career interest inventory. But the actual advisement process needs to be early and ongoing to help the young men and young ladies be the best they can be and the most successful they can be. You have to have that ongoing advisement and accountability process, not only to where the young men and young ladies can establish their own goals for student success and career planning, but also teachers have an opportunity to act as advisors and be advocates for the young men and young ladies, because every student needs to have that advocate. So a 4-year plan allows students to personalize their high school experience, incorporate classes that will lead to their future college major and career choice, ensure that they graduate from high school in 4 years, and investigate the career clusters available. Steps to take, identify when the 4-year plans will be completed. Identify who will be responsible for ensuring the completion of the 4-year plan, and use advisory time to conduct freshman and sophomore, junior, and senior meetings to align career goals with specific CCR indicators. Available guidance systems, Career Cruising, Naviance, and Cooter. and a personalized academic plan. You know, although we're talking about college and career readiness, academic planning and career planning kind of go hand in hand. So we want to suggest suggestions for implementation. Counselors provide lessons, materials, and resources and align career goals with specific CCR indicators. For that student who wants to attend a four-year college, we have the ACT, Academic Dual Enrollment, AP, and IB. Career Tech programs, ACT, WorkKeys, Career Tech, and Dual Enrollment, and military, which is based on ASFAB admission or acceptance in the military is based on ASFAB scores, and workforce, WorkKeys, CTE credentials, and dual enrollment. And, you know, as you can see, this is one that addresses some of the academic components of career advisement. You know, when we conduct advisement of the young men and young ladies, I often ask them to look ahead. What do you want to do when you get old like me? You know, and then once they identify their career interest, work backwards to develop their four-year plan, and it can even stretch into an 8-year plan. Our academic plan and school advisory program. This is a definition of successful advisory program. Goal of an advisory program is to help students figure out who they are, where they're headed, and how they're going to get there. We know where our students are when we get them. It's our job to help them identify the pathway to obtain that career goal or where they want to be 8, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And through an advisory system, each student has at a minimum one adult who knows them and helps them navigate high school so that they can leave with a meaningful, personalized plan and are prepared for post-secondary options. All right, this is a diagram that kind of lays out the mapping of advisement from 8th grade through 12th grade, you know, beginning with career interest inventory in 8th grade, four-year plans 9th grade, and continued advisement all the way through their senior year to ensure that every student has an opportunity to be successful. There's also a link, I'm sorry, William, there was also a link at the bottom of that to take them to Alabama Works site, which is another career advisement opportunity for young men and young ladies. And then of course, we have to make it our own. You know, each school is different, each group of students are different, and each community is different. This is an example of the link is an example of a sample planning schedule for student advisement. You have to look at your student population, look at the community that you serve, and develop plans for improvement in ACT, career advisement, WorkKeys, all those areas based upon the needs of your kids. And one way to do that, as Dr. Hall pointed out in a chat earlier, is do that PDSA cycle, do that root cause analysis and identify those areas that are weakest or those areas that need the most attention and focus your attention on those areas.
And so as we move along and we're in our support for our students and becoming graduates and decreasing that gap between your grad and your CCR rate, Joe pointed out something very important earlier when he said identify the person responsible. So what you want to make sure that you're doing when you looking at tracking that cohort tracking tool, you want to make sure you start with each cohort and make sure you have a document that outlines those students and the CCR indicators and whether or not they have met those particular indicators. This will keep you on top of what those students need to do in order to earn that CCR indicator prior to graduating from high school. So you need to include all of your CCR indicators and you need to make sure you review and update this student information, their progress every year. This can be done through advising or it can be done with the counselors. It's up to the school to decide, but you need to decide how you're going to keep track of whether or not a student has earned a CCR indicator. And I do want to point out that it's not just about earning a CCR indicator so that the school can meet whatever they need to meet it towards improving their report card. It is about making sure that those students are prepared for life beyond high school, but they're prepared with the necessary skills that they are interested in. And this is another way, the ASVAB Career Exploration Program is another way to do that if one of my colleagues want to elaborate on that quickly.
I can quickly, just the ASVAB, we recommend that students could take it in the 10th grade. There is the Career Exploration Program, or the CEP component of the ASVAB. We will talk about the ASVAB in greater detail in session 2, but it is part of the roadmap because if students take it in the 10th grade, ASVAB scores are only good for 2 years. And so all your students could take it, and there is no kind of requirement, or they don't have to worry about being bombarded by military recruiters or being, that sort of thing when they take it in the 10th grade, because that score would not be good for them to move into the military if they took it in the 10th grade anyway. So we recommend taking it 10th grade, and then it opens up a career exploration program for them that is very robust, allows students to really look into possible careers, education requirements, all sorts of other opportunities and resources are located within the platform. And then it allows them, I know many of them are taking career tests in the 8th grade to kind of see what their interests are, but we all know that sometimes those results you'll still have a high number of students that select, they want to be a celebrity or they want to be a pro athlete. And a lot of times what we find is when they have to complete it again in the 10th grade or something similar to the ASVAB CEP platform, then we get more in tune with what the kids' actual interest might be for post-secondary. So we just recommend looking into this. If you're interested, we have some contact information for our state representative. I'm happy to share that.
Okay, thank you, William.
Marcy,
and as I transition to the, I'm sorry, did someone say
I was
something?
gonna say, there was a
Okay.
question. Are there any special exemptions that don't count against your school for students who may be first-time 9th grader after repeating elementary or middle grade and entering high school at the age of 16 years or older? Your cohort year begins that 9th grade year. So it doesn't determine, it's not based upon what age you are, it's based upon when you enter that 9th grade year. And then that 4-year cohort begins once you enter that 9th grade year. And I saw in the questions, the registration questions, someone asked about students who transfer to your school and end up dropping out. Is there anything that can be done at that point? Unfortunately, once you accept that student as a transfer to your school, you're accepting them as part of that cohort. So what they bring with them, you're taking ownership of. So there's not anything you can do. Now, there are some suggestions that we can follow up with later regarding cleanup of your cohort data, but that would be another session in and of itself.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for answering that question. And the next section on our roadmap is junior meetings. I cannot tell you how important it is to conduct junior meetings with your rising seniors, okay? Now, I would also suggest that you conduct these junior meetings with the parent or guardian as well. I know that it may be difficult with COVID or parents' work schedule. My past experience, as an administrator, we conducted junior meetings. If the parent couldn't attend, we had the parent on the speakerphone. And we walked through a graduation plan. What is that child going to do after they graduate from high school? So attached is a junior meeting form that I'm going to go through quickly. And what this form does is it just outlines, can you all still see my screen? It just outlines, it's a transcript evaluation where you're sitting down with the student, going through his or her transcript, making sure that they have all the required courses they need up to their senior year. It's looking at tardies, unexcused absences, excused absences. And then it's also going ahead and sitting down and planning the classes that that student is going to take their senior year. Then the next thing you want to do is look at what pathway that student is going to take after high school, if they're going to go to a 4-year or technical school. So let them list their choices. They can list what they made on the ACT, the area of study, and then most importantly, how they're going to pay for college. This is where financial, the FAFSA, completing the FAFSA can come in as part of the conversation. Military, what branch, ASVAB, and then job force. So this was very beneficial in one of my previous capacities, just sitting down, having those junior meetings and discussing transcript attendance, their schedule and their path after high school. Now, this next slide is one of the most biggest factors in making sure that students are graduating from high school, and that's conducting transcript audits. You need to make sure that you're conducting those regular transcript audits. This will ensure that those students are graduating in 4 years. It's going to avoid students earning any duplicate credits, which we have seen a lot of. And then it's also going to make sure that students are credentialing in those CTE pathways. And sometimes students will have several CTE courses on their transcript, but they're not all in the same pathway. So this is one way that you can ensure that students are on the pathway. And then there's no harm in training students on how to read their own transcript, so they will know what next class they need to take. And then taking classes that will prepare them for matriculation to a 2 or 4 year institution, workforce, or military. Joe discussed earlier on having that personalized plan. Let them go ahead and identify whether or not they want to go to a 4-year college, the military, or straight into the workforce. Based on their decision during that time, their 9th grade year, then they would develop a plan for that. And then they can stick to that plan. Now, once you give them that interest inventory again, possibly in the 10th grade, their interest may change because the last time they took it was in the 8th grade. So that will also help them to develop a plan and help them be accountable for their own learning. So please make sure you audit your transcripts at least twice per year. That's very, very important. Please make sure, because it's not fair to the students. They get to their senior year and they don't have everything that they need in order to graduate. Next to the last thing that's on our list is FAFSA. We put FAFSA in here because oftentimes students don't go to college or not interested in college because they have no means of paying for it. So all of this can come out in your conversation with those students in that junior meeting or beforehand. Don't be hesitant also to educate your teachers if they're going to be advising students. Educate your teachers on the different opportunities that are out there for the students. The Cash for College dashboard is Alabama Possible is a very great tool. It will let you know what students have completed the FAFSA, what students are in the process, and if a student has completed the FAFSA and they have not submitted it. Then there are also lesson plans. Now we know that this year is the year that all seniors will be required to complete the FAFSA, but there is a link here attached to a memo from Dr. Mackey along with a waiver. So students can opt out of completing the FAFSA, but just having this information will be life-changing for a lot of students. Now, if you look at all these processes and procedures that we outline for you on the pathway to college and career readiness, that will end up where that student is a graduate. So what does that mean? That means that that student has earned the required credits necessary to receive the high school diploma, which means they have mastered all of the standards that were put before them. Maybe I may not say mastered, I use that term loosely, but they have passed all of the required courses set by the State Department. So this will prepare them for matriculation to a 2 or 4 year institution. And we want to also make sure that they're ready to enter the workforce if they choose, or they're ready to enlist in the military if they so choose. I do want to say this, that to earn that CCR credit, once again, it has to be completed before that student, before graduation. This does not mean during the summer before the academic year closes out. Whenever you have your scheduled date for graduation, that student must have earned, or students, they must earn that CCR indicator by that particular time. So now, as we draw to the end of this session, and as Dr. Shields put in the chat, I know that we have given you all a lot of information here today. but please make use of any of the embedded links or slides that we may have. And William, do you want to discuss our reflection questions?
No, well, I will briefly because we're running very short on time. We wanted to give you just some thoughts prior to going into the actual survey and attendance form that you could kind of look over, give some thought. We really want you to take a minute to fill out the survey and let us know if there's a particular area that you would like more information. If there's something within your school that you're working and you're prioritizing and you want us to talk about it, we're happy to do so. So I'm dropping the survey link in the chat. If you will fill that out, and that will let us know for your attendance purposes in Power School so we can award credit. That also give us some feedback for the next session. As Dr. Shields pointed out in the chat, our next session, or part 2, is October the 26th at 11:30. And so we highly recommend you complete the survey, give us some feedback so we can kind of tailor session 2 to your needs. And then we'll also talk about CTE, military, and a couple of other things in that session as well.